Ladies and gentlemen, please stand. Their Excellencies, the Right Honourable Dame Patsy Reddy, Governor-General of New Zealand, and Sir David Gascoigne.
Haramaira, ngā rangatira, ngā manukura o te rānei e. Haramai, haramai rungi te kaupapa o te rānei e. Haramai, haere mai, no mai rā.
Te here mauri ora. He hōnore he kororia he maungarongo ki runga ki te mata o te whenua. He whakaaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa. Aro haina ngā teina me ngā tuakana e noho nei rungi te whakaaro ki tahi pai mahi.
Thank you, everyone. Please take a seat. I ngā mana, i ngā reo, i ngā iwi o ngā hoe whā, tēnei aku mihi mahana ki a koutou. Nau mai, haere mai, ki te whare kawana. Kia ora tātou katoa. I specifically acknowledge Police Commissioner Andrew Costa, Deputy Police Commissioner Wally Homaha, our kuia Rānui Ngārimu, our kaumātua Joe Harawera. Tēnā koutou. And I offer a very special welcome to today's honour recipients. It's a pleasure to host this investiture ceremony and bring together 12 honour recipients, along with their family and friends, to recognise the contributions they've made to our country. As Governor-General, I have the authority and the privilege, on behalf of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, the Queen of New Zealand, to hold an investiture for her and to confer royal honours, our nation's highest honours, on individuals who've made an exceptional contribution to our country. Hosting an investiture ceremony is one of the most important duties I perform as Governor-General because it enables me to recognise and thank them on behalf of all New Zealanders for helping to make Aotearoa New Zealand a better place to live. Some recipients have a national public profile. Others will be well known in their particular communities. But what they all have in common is the contribution they've made to the economic, environmental, social or cultural well-being of our nation. Catriona MacLeod will now read the citation for each recipient and invite them to come forward to receive their insignia. As each recipient comes forward, I invite you to join me in thanking and congratulating them for their service to our country.
Your Excellency, to receive the insignia of a Knight Companion of the New Zealand Order of Merit, Sir Robert Martin of Honolulu for services to people with disabilities. Sir Robert Martin has been involved with a self-advocacy movement for people with learning, intellectual disabilities, and has represented their rights and interests at a national and international level for more than 30 years. Sir Robert is currently serving a 4-year term as an independent expert on the United Nations Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. In 2018, he was the first person with a learning disability to chair a meeting within a UN session, having been the first person with a learning disability to be elected onto a UN Human Rights Treaty body the year prior. He is a life member of People First New Zealand, which he helped found in the 1980s, and has held a number of leadership roles within the organisation. He's been a member of the National Assembly of People with Disabilities and chair of the Frozen Funds Committee. He has been the People First representative for the Ministry of Health Consumer Consortium. He is often a keynote speaker at annual leadership forums run by People First New Zealand around the country. He was a member of the Honolulu Regional Disability Strategy Reference Group from 2010 to 2011. Sir Robert held roles within Inclusion International and was National Self-Advocacy Advisor and Trainer for IHC New Zealand between 1991 and 2010. Sir Robert Martin, please come forward.
Arise, Sir Robert.
To receive the insignia of a Companion of the New Zealand Order of Merit, Mr. Mike Bush of Wellington for services to the New Zealand Police and the community. Mike Bush has had a career with the New Zealand Police since 1978 and was Commissioner of Police from 2014 until April 2020. He oversaw the launch of a strategy supporting how police work with ethnic communities and has driven work to improve female representation at all levels of police. He worked on the Prevention First operating model, which contributed to a 20% drop in crime while lifting New Zealanders' confidence in police. He has promoted strategies to address Māori overrepresentation in the justice system. He's led the police response to major natural disasters and to the Christchurch mosque shootings. Mr. Bush has collaborated with other chiefs of police within the Pacific to share knowledge and taken the lead with Asian nations on joint transnational crime investigations. Mr. Mike Bush, please come forward. receive the insignia of an Officer of the New Zealand Order of Merit, Professor Ian Lambie of Auckland, for services to clinical psychology. Professor Ian Lambie is a clinical psychologist who has been in practice since 1990, providing assessments and therapy for children and young persons with high and complex needs. He is Chief Science Advisor for the Justice sector and lectures in clinical psychology at the University of Auckland, where he has also served as Associate Director of the Wherry Centre for Child and Adult Mental Health. He has informed national policy standards and guidelines through participation in advisory groups. He has conducted research, staff training, and clinical work with Oranga Tamariki, the SAFE Network, the Ministry of Education, Fire and Emergency, New Zealand's Fire Awareness and Intervention Programme, and the New Zealand Police. Professor Lambie has served on several boards and provides presentations and training to local community groups. Professor Ian Lambie, please come forward. Bev May was the first woman in 1960 to gain a cycling licence to race competitively in New Zealand against men. She continued to race at the national level until a cycling accident in 1988 ended her competitive career. She helped establish the Morrinsville Wheelers, has been a committee member since 1970, and club secretary for 37 years. She has held various roles at the Weston Bay of Plenty Centre level, including secretary, selector, manager, and judge. She developed the Bev May Women's Only Tour, which she continues to organise and which celebrated its 30th event in 2019. She has held various team management positions and is a national commissaire for Cycling New Zealand. Mrs. May was an appointed IUCI commissaire at the 1990 Commonwealth Games. Mrs. Bev May, please come forward. New Zealand Order of Merit, Mr. Peter Jackson of Queenstown, for services to the trades, industry and business. Peter Jackson was a member, deputy chairman and chairman of the New Zealand Plumbers, Gas Fitters and Drain Layers Board, where he restored industry relationships and put in place a sound regulatory scheme. He chairs Site Safe New Zealand and Industry Connection for Excellence. He's a board member of the Apprenticeship Training Trust and the Southern Institute of Technology. He has managed his family-owned plumbing business for 45 years and volunteered for the Business Mentor organisation. He's a Chartered Fellow of the New Zealand Institute of Directors and represents New Zealand on the World Plumbing Council. Mr. Jackson is a life member of the Southland Master Plumbers Association. Mr. Peter Jackson, please come forward. Dr. Vince Peterson worked as a veterinarian for almost 40 years in Hokitika and Geraldine, and at times was the only veterinarian on the West Coast. He was chairman of the Veterinary Professional Insurance Society, VPIS, a not-for-profit incorporated society functioning as an indemnity insurer run by veterinarians for veterinarians. He helped VPIS move from a novice insurance position to offering one of the leading indemnity policies for the veterinary profession. He was a board member for the New Zealand Veterinary Association and has assisted other veterinarians over the years, educating and advocating for them. Dr. Peterson has contributed to positive changes to the Veterinary Council's complaints system. Dr. Vince Peterson, please come forward. For services to ceramic art. Rick Rudd has been creating ceramic artwork for 45 years and has exhibited widely. He established the Rick Rudd Foundation to provide a public amenity in the ownership, curation and exhibition of the Rick Rudd collection and the education of studio potters. He personally funded the establishment of Port's Museum of Studio Ceramics in Whanganui and now runs the Free Museum with little assistance and outside funding. He donated his collection of ceramics and the building that houses them. Mr. Rudd was president of the New Zealand Society of Potters and the Auckland Studio Potters Society and a member of the Sargent Gallery, Te Whare o Rehua Trust Board. Mr. Rick Rudd, please come forward. Excellency, to receive the Queen's Service Medal, Ms. Kateraritan of Murchison, services to the welfare of beneficiaries. Kateraritan is the manager for Beneficiaries and Unwaged Workers Trust in Nelson. She's a member of the National Beneficiary Advocacy Consultative Group, which meets with the Ministry of Social Development to discuss issues of the welfare system, and the group's co-convener for the Wellington People's Centre. She's a member of several working groups within government ministries. She was a member of the Welfare Expert Advisory Group in 2018. Ms. Brereton was contracted by Southland Beneficiaries and Community Rights Centre to deliver benefit advocacy training and to deliver a remote advocacy service trial for trespassed clients. Ms. Kay Brereton, please come forward. For services to the community. Olga McHarris was a budget advisor with the Whanganui Budget Advisory Service for more than 30 years, guiding numerous families and clients out of debt, and is now a life member. In 1 year at the Budget Advisory Service, she managed 365 client cases, more than 40% of the centre's total. For many years, she's provided Christmas gifts at her own cost for families accessing the service. She's been involved with delivering Meals on Wheels for 40 years and with Plunkett for 20 years. Mrs. McHarris is a front-of-house volunteer at the Royal Whanganui Opera House. Mrs. Olga McHarris, please come forward. Wanaka for services to conservation and search and rescue. Stewart Thorne worked with the Lands and Survey Department and the Department of Conservation for 40 years. He eradicated Lagrosiphon major from Lake Wanaka and helped reintroduce bluff weka to the islands of Lake Wanaka and the South Island robin to the west of Matukituki Valley. He volunteers for the Matukituki Charitable Trust and Dock. He was a search and rescue police advisor and helped establish the Upper Clutha Trapping Club. Mr. Thorne has been chairperson of the New Zealand Mountain Safety Council, president of Wanaka JCs, secretary of the Wanaka Lions Club, and group leader for Wanaka Venturer Scouts. Mr. Stewart Thorne, please come forward. Weston of Blenheim for services to migrant and refugee communities. Margaret Weston was part of the group that developed the Marlborough Migrant Centre, established in 2007, and served as the centre's manager until recently. She's a member of the steering group preparing the Marlborough community for its first intake of former refugees. She's organised the Multicultural Festival in Marlborough, the Diwali Festival, and International Women's Evenings. She has volunteered for IHC Marlborough, the Marlborough Budgeting Service, and the Child Cancer Foundation. Mrs. Weston is former president of ESOL Marlborough, chairperson of the Star of the Sea Cultural Committee, and a Marlborough Community Organisation's Grants Scheme Board member. Mrs. Margaret Weston, please come forward. Gareth Winter of Masterton for services to historical research. Gareth Winter is the archivist of the Wairanapa Archive, which he has developed into the premier provincial archive in Australasia. He's written hundreds of newspaper stories on local history, presented historical talks, and authored 11 books, including 6 for the Wairanapa Archival Society, of which he's vice chairman. He's a member of the Archives Council and the Wairanapa Historic Places Trust. He was a board member of the Aratoi Art and History Museum and the New Zealand Pacific Studio. Mr. Winter established the Lavinia Winter Fellowship for women interested in writing or art. Mr. Gareth Winter, please come forward. The Investiture has concluded.
Our honours system is our nation's highest public affirmation of outstanding individual achievement. It reinforces values and behaviours that sustain our communities and help our nation thrive and prosper. And these include service, courage, manaakitanga, and the pursuit of knowledge and excellence. By using their talents to make ours a better society, whether by service to their communities, or by their leadership in diverse fields of endeavour, or their commitment to excellence in their area of expertise, our recipients have set a fine example. To the recipients, it's been a real pleasure to hear your stories today. You've demonstrated determination, commitment and compassion in your daily lives. In your own way, each of you has helped make Aotearoa New Zealand a better place to live. In some cases, your influence and the positive impact of your work has extended beyond our shores. Your actions and the stories we've heard today reflect the spirit of the words of Te Puia Erangi, Princess Te Puia, when she said, "Mahia te mahi e paenga mō te iwi." When you work for the well-being of the people. On behalf of all New Zealanders, I thank you for helping to improve the well-being of our people, whether by dedicating your lives to the public good, achieving distinction in your chosen field, or inspiring others with your leadership. Please wear your insignia with pride, knowing that your contributions are recognised and valued, and others are inspired by your example. Ladies and gentlemen, that almost brings to a close the formal part of today's ceremony. But before we commence our refreshments, I wonder if you might stand and join me and we'll sing our national anthem.